And we're going to cover that Thursday and Friday night games, as well as the lead up to Origin. And now Adrian Proszenko is joining us this week. Webby, best of luck to you, Webby, just in your health, getting over an operation throughout the week. I hope you're well. But AP, you're standing in again. Now, from a journalist point of view, even though there's a couple of players that aren't talking to the media, still plenty going on.
Always plenty going on in rugby league land, and that's the beauty of the job. You never know what's coming up next. So on Tuesday, for instance, I went and saw the Sonny Bill Williams Paul Gallen face-off, where Paul Gallen didn't actually turn up. By Wednesday,
what is it with New South Welshmen not turning up and not talking?
Not talking.
Yeah.
It all adds to the mystique.
Wouldn't happen in Queensland, can it?
No, of course not. So by Wednesday, I'm sticking my beak into the Blue Mountains to see what's going on there. Then I'm writing about Lachlan Galvin and, Reece Walsh, giving his mate an uppercut, all of that sort of stuff.
You need an uppercut for reporting on it.
Oh, honestly. And that's 2 days into my working week. Adam O'Brien, he's got the full support of the board. And you just think, what happens next?
Yep.
She's a box of chocolates.
Hey, what we love about Saturday League Kickoff each and every week is that the listeners and the viewers can get involved in the show. So we want you to send your text 0457 736 736, or you can give us a call. That's what we love also. 1300 01 1170 is the number. Come on, Queensland fans, New South Wales fans. We want you to call up. Just tell us what you're looking forward to next Wednesday night. Let's debate it. Do you agree with the Latrell Mitchell, Spencer Leniu not talking? Are you all over it? You're loving the mystique around it at all? We're going to have our views on it very soon. So coming up on the show, it is going to be all things Origin, as well as one of our very good colleagues, and Brandy Alexander is going to join us as well, just to discuss last night's game. Where are Manly at? Where are Parramatta at? And that's brought to you by Temper as well. And he's going to give us his nomination for the player who thinks that they would have slept well after last night's performance. Or maybe a coach would have slept well, Jason Riles. We're going to catch up with him soon. Also the Friday night games, a Thursday night game. Great win by the Dolphins up against the depleted Bulldogs. We know that. And the big news of the week is Lachlan Galvin as well is still in the news. After that board meeting from the West Tigers last week, the Bears as well. Now they're starting to ramp up. Who's going to be their first coach? And also the stadium debacle. I mean, from a rugby league fan, I don't understand the politics around this, AP, and we're going to get into a little bit later on.
Yeah.
Why should South be playing at Allianz as opposed to Accor, which was a deal done way back when they came back into the competition.
Yeah.
You could see that they needed to get money on the bottom line, and that's what happens when the stadiums, they pay the clubs to play their games there. But as a rugby league fan, to me, it just makes sense that Souths need to be at Allianz.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, we'll go into it more later on, but obviously I think there was a reason why they originally went to Accor, and that was to broaden their membership base. They've done that. They've got like 30,000 plus members. But when you've got this facility that taxpayers have spent $800 million on, you want as many games played there as possible. So I think
it's got a roof.
Hasn't got a roof. And they've already moved from Redfern to Heffron. So I think getting back into that heartland is a really good move for the Bunnies. Yeah,
we'll touch on that. Bunnies fans, Roosters fans, what do you think as well? Now, hopefully, Tommy Dearden is going to join us from inside Queensland camp as well. They're just doing a weight session currently. Apparently, they do yoga and hot yoga and stretching and everything like that in the modern
Never
day
happened in your day, did it?
So we're going to hopefully catch up with Tommy Dearden at the back end of the show. But first, like we do each and every week, we get to our Saturday Spotlight.
The Spotlight.
AP, you're first. What stood out for you throughout the week?
Yeah, watching last night, Joash Papalii, not Papalii,
no.
It's Joash Papalii as he wants to be known, made his debut, and it wasn't really the way he was expecting to do it. So he was on the bench. He's been 18th man for a long time, finally gets his chance. There's an injury after just 2 minutes, and all of a sudden he comes on. And my mail was that he was going to come on to play dummy half and relieve Riley Smith. And in the end, he gets thrown into the outside backs. And he had a few shaky moments there as well. Probably when Tommy Turbo went down the left, he let a couple in, but he scored that wonderful try. It was just a great moment to see him. And then those scenes afterwards where his old man is in the crowd, all the family's there. Huge moment for Joash. And there's a lot of former Bulldogs players in that Parramatta side, and there's Simrani and a couple of others. So they all performed really well, but a debut that he will never forget.
And also had a hand in a try as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, great debut. I mean, they did attack him at times, and he had to make some pretty tough decisions defensively. But you learn on the run. That's what we know. Hey, my Saturday Spotlight is Punchgate. Reece Walsh social media punch. Now, can I just say, have we got to this stage of our lives in the environment of life that we think that this is such horrible news? Now, I know that the Broncos aren't going great at the moment, and on the back of the mutton Taupa'u, and there's always this stuff around Ezra Mam and the comparisons and whatever it may be, that we think that the club's got to come down hard on him. Now, I know Dave Donaghy and Michael Maguire would be saying publicly, hey, listen, this is not ideal. We're disappointed in you putting this up on social media. But I'd like to think, and they're good guys, that behind closed doors they're going, Reece, you know what, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. We've just got to put a bit of a face up because we live in this nanny state now where we all want to get up in arms about a few guys that are having a good time together. It's consensual.
Consensual.
The punch is consensual.
He stuck his chin out. It was okay. He
Yeah,
gave him
exactly.
permission to hit him.
He lost a bet, and that's what all mates do.
Yeah.
Do you put it up on social media? No. But guess what? We're old. We don't understand this world that the kids live in these days. So move on. It's a non-event. But I've got to put my Saturday spotlight on you. You wrote a story about it.
Yeah. Look, you know what? On the atrocity scale of all the things that happen in rugby league that you would have seen during your long career, it's a 0.1 on the Richter scale.
Yep.
But it's a grade 7 imbeciling. The fact that not so much that he actually filmed himself, but that he posted it and thought it was a good idea. And
Well, he has got Reece TV coming up soon.
He has got Reece TV, but it's also, when you put it into context, so Marty Tapau has basically just got himself sacked for liking something that Elijah Taylor, I think, has said, which was really critical of the coach.
Yeah.
Which is dumb, right? So that's a trap for young players. That's a warning, a shot across the bows that maybe you don't post stuff like this. So unfortunately, that moves the needle. People want to hear about Reece, and he does stuff like that. You know, they've lost 5 out of 6 games. Madge is under pressure. The club's under pressure. It's just so dumb. So dumb.
Keep going, Reece. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Hey, now let's get into Origin because the fever is here and we are well entrenched right now. Wednesday night, of course, at Suncorp Stadium. Latest from Blue Mountains. Now there were reports, some heavy conditions with the weather as well, which is not ideal for your preparation, especially if you're a front rower that's struggling with a quad injury. You don't want to load that up too much. Spoke to Matty Scott, the great Queensland front rower, throughout the week and asked him about if this was him, how would it affect his preparation. He said, as a front rower, our job is pretty simple. But if you're an outside back or someone that's got a lot of change of angles or movement from agility perspective, it's not as ideal. So Stephen Crichton comes into that equation with that groin injury. So is there any latest from the Blue Mountains?
Well, the good thing is that Stephen Crichton has been participating in training from the get-go. So he was there on Tuesday when they had their first full session. We're expecting that Payne Haas will probably hit the field in the next hour or so. It's a big session day for the Blues. They've actually had to move it from the Blue Mountains at Wentworth Falls, and they're going to do it at Penrith's Rugby League Academy because that joint is just a quagmire at the moment with all the heavy rain.
Yep.
And that's part of the reason we haven't seen Payne to this point. What's the point of risking a front rower when it's really slushy and slippery, and you could potentially aggravate that quad injury? And I know, talking to the Blues, they're prepared to leave it until next week with Payne Haas. But the fact that he's actually out there now, can get a run in, get a feel with his teammates, especially because it is a different side. So obviously Mitchell Moses and Nathan Cleary playing together for the first time. So it'll be really beneficial for him and for the whole squad. And they're going to do a post-session today against Ryde Eastwood. So you can just imagine some of those guys who are semi-professional footballers going out there and marking up on a Payne Haas or a Latrell Mitchell. It'll be one of the highlights of their footballing careers.
Well, there is a massive influenza that is wiped through the Queensland camp. No one can train today.
You can set your clock to it, can't you?
Exactly. Now, the 18th man rule. Kurt Mann, 18th man for Queensland. Now, there are obviously clubs that have been in this situation before. How come you can't release the 18th man to the club? They're playing on Thursday night. The Origin's not till next Wednesday. Well, ask the player if they want to go back to clubland when they're the 18th man. You don't want to go back to clubland and break Origin camp for a number of reasons. One, you get paid. But secondly, if he suffers a HIA and fails that, he is ineligible to play the following Wednesday if it's a Cat 1. So you don't want to put that in jeopardy at all. So I get it from a player's point of view and from the New South Wales and Queensland Rugby League point of view. They don't release them.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for the Blues because over the last few years, Matt Burton has been the 18th man.
He has too,
and it's effectively ruled him out of the next game for the NRL. So There's almost an unwritten pattern. Adam Reece, the Bulldogs chairman, is very close to Laurie Daly. And the mail that I've got is that they've made an agreement where instead of picking Matt Burden, which they could have done, that they would pick someone from the 6 or 7 teams that have got the bye. So I think Campbell Graham was on standby, for instance, for Stephen Crichton. And that way he can go in camp and nobody has to miss an NRL game. So I can understand the thinking behind that. It makes good sense. It's logical.
I remember when in Origin camp once, and we were up in the hinterland of the Gold Coast, and we were playing Newcastle, Penrith, and we were flying at that stage. I think we were second on the ladder, and I was really excited to see how the guys would go. And I was trying to find a TV in this place we were staying, and there was no TVs in the whole place. And they finally scrounged one up, and Darren Lockyer came up to me and said, "Don't worry about club footy. You're not here for club footy. Don't worry about it." I thought, you know what? As much as I know they'll win, which they did, I've got a bigger job on hand here.
Yeah, but times have changed that. So we saw last night Mitchell Moses was in the coaching box with Jason Rolls. Zach Lomax was in the crowd as well. So especially when it's in Sydney, like they don't have to go far. Like
true.
So it's just up the road, and they want to support their club teammates. So it makes sense.
We're going to get to some matchups as well. One I'm looking forward to, which is I think not many people will think it's a matchup, but we're going to get to those very soon. But the self-imposed bans from Latrell and Spencer, where do we sit with this? Now, what should the game accept it? Should the game be saying to these players, you know what, you sign a contract, and part of that contract says that you've got to make yourself available, in realistic terms, make yourself available to promote the game. So first of all, where should the game sit on this? Because they are quite soft on it.
Yeah, well, it's sort of, initially it's a club issue because there have been several players that are infamous for not doing media over a number of years. Like in the back end of his career, Jared Warrior-Hargraves didn't do much, Reece Walsh doesn't do much, Latrell picks and chooses when he does it, and we've already talked about how they get onto social media rather than do it in the traditional way.
Well, they want to be able to control it themselves, control the narrative.
But even then, we saw with Reece Walsh, he sort of lost control
there.
Goes left of centre. It's sort of funny too. Like with Spencer, for instance, he has actually just released a video blog, a vlog, the kiddies call it. So he's just done that on the day that he's come into camp, where he's not talking to anyone. And he wants to provide, I guess, a curated version of his life on and off the field. So you go in there and you see him, getting a haircut. But I'm tipping the barber's not asking him any hard questions. Why did you abuse Jonathan Thurston, one of the greats of our game and a future immortal? So
I think they've just got to draw a line in the sand and say, we don't want you asking questions about the Ezra Mam incident in Vegas. We don't want you asking questions to the journos that want to get those, get those reactions. They should be, I think, they should be able to put some precedents in. And if you do break ranks, we just take your accreditation away for Origin.
But why can't they answer those questions? Like they're paid $30,000, and it's not just for the 80 minutes it's on the field. It's actually to promote the biggest game in rugby league as well.
And that's what they should be talking about, the biggest game in rugby league. We don't need to keep dredging back. We've got to keep looking forward and looking at the game that's coming up. Your matchup with Robert Toyer, Latrell Mitchell. How much do you know about him? Do you know this young kid who's come through this great adversity and all these, there's so many great questions you can ask to build up the rivalry. The rivalry will sell itself.
Yeah. You also don't want them to do it under sufferance. You don't want a situation where Latrell Mitchell is there and he's sort of gritting his teeth for 2 minutes standing there saying yes, no answers or whatever. But I think it's a bigger issue about how they interact with the game. It's not just with the journalists, it's with the fans who actually want to hear about it. And it's a scarcity effect. It's almost like Wayne Bennett. The less he says, the more we want to hear from him. And in the case of Latrell and Spencer, I'd love to see them actually come out and say some stuff. We actually get, at where I work, all journalists see figures in terms of who looks at their stories. And there is a power to silence. So one of the biggest rating stories that I've ever seen, and Andrew Webster, who I'm filling in for today, he wrote a story about trying to track down Luke Longley in the middle of COVID when The Last Dance comes out, one of the biggest content stories to come out because there's no other sport going on. Everyone's locked into this thing. Everyone's trying to get that first Luke Longley interview. So he writes the story about his attempt to actually get Luke to talk to him, and that has broken the internet, in terms of the most people we've ever read a sports story at our work. And then he finally gets Luke Longley and he gets the interview and it doesn't rate anywhere near as much. So it just shows we're writing about Latrell even though the fact he's not talking to us.
And I think when the NRL look at that, they say to themselves, well, this is what rivalry is about, because I know for a fact there are Queensland fans that are rabid. They cannot wait to rip into Spencer Leniu and Latrell Mitchell for not talking.
Yeah.
So it's exactly right what you're saying. I think there's a little bit of mystique around it all. I think there's mystique about them not talking. Is exactly what you've said. It's built up that much more discussion around it that it's selling itself. That it's without saying anything. Well, it's like you're snubbing your nose at the opposition and saying we don't care about you. And that's what I love about it.
But that was like a cheap ploy used by Paul Gallen this week.
Yeah.
So it was this 10 years in the making, a face-off. We're going to see Sonny Bill Williams and Paul Gallen finally together, staring each other in the eye. And Paul Gallen says, "No, I ain't turning up." And you know what? We write more about that than if he actually did turn up.
Exactly. Now, like we said, we love you to get involved in the show. 1300 01 1170 is the number if you want to give us a call. I think it's Peter from Townsville. How are you, Pete?
Hey, good, thanks.
What's on your mind?
I'm just thinking about Latrell and Spencer there. Just how they've got the media ban on. I'm not sure if that sort of suits their style, if you know what I mean. Like Latrell being a showman, I think that might go against them. That's all.
Do you know what, Pete? It's a good point you make because there are some athletes that they thrive on being. I don't want to use the word controversial, but they thrive on being that person that loves to put the black cape on and play public enemy number one. Some of those players, they play their best rugby league like that.
Paul Gallen leans into it during his career.
Yeah, absolutely. So
to the point where the NRL was actually paying him to say outlandish things to promote the game.
Exactly.
The interesting thing with Latrell is that only a couple of years ago, it was after he came back from Bill Knowles, he went and saw that reconditioning specialist when he had that injury. And while he was there, he immersed himself in the American sports culture, so NFL, NBA, and they've got all of these brash stars that really talk themselves up, which is sort of counter to what the Australians do, like because we've got that tall poppy syndrome. And he said, "That's what I want to bring to the NRL. I want to talk it up and big it up." We haven't heard from you, Latrell. Something.
Do you know what we don't have like the NFL have got is that after a game, you've got full access.
Yeah.
Yeah, full access to the players. You're in the dressing sheds. Like the old days, you used to walk in the dressing sheds and interview the players as they sit at their position in the dressing sheds.
I just find it absolutely bizarre that it's probably easier to get a one-on-one with LeBron James than it is with Joash Papalii. Like, that's just outrageous that we don't do enough to promote our game.
Yeah, I get it. I think you should be promoting yourself as well as your club, any spare moment you get. It only takes 5 or 6 minutes out of your day. Now, we've been banging on about this, myself and Matty Rogers, for 2 years, a UFC-style press conference. If it goes to 1-1 and third game is in Sydney, Martin Place, left and right, Gerard Whateley from SEN, will be the host because he's neutral. And then on one side you got, I've written some down here, Benny Elias, we've got Gal, Blocker, and Joey. And on the other side, we have Choppy, Fatty, Gordy, and maybe Greg Dowling. Because Wayne Bennett used to ring Greg Dowling all the time and tell him to come out publicly and call the Queensland forward pack soft. And they come out and win the game. So we want to see a press conference in Martin Place, public day, press day, where the former legends are the ones they're going to pump up the rivalry. Now, the rivalry, like I said, sells itself. But you'd still love to hear a little bit of that spite, wouldn't you?
This is almost like an election debate, isn't it? And
right.
Do we get the worm to see who's winning?
I love it. Hey, really, before we get to the break, really quickly, your favourite Origin moment
of all time? Well, I reckon Andrew Johns' comeback in 2005.
It's pretty special, yeah.
One of the greats. So New South Wales is down in this series. They're down 12-8 at halftime, and Joey turns on an absolute masterclass, kicks a 40-20. There's 4 second-half tries, and he has a hand in every single one of them. And you just see everything changes.
Yeah.
He comes back, and not only does he play well, but he makes everyone else lift, and they just have that confidence of knowing Joey's out there. We're going to get this done. He gets it done.
Yeah, you're right. It was hard to watch as a Queenslander. And before we get to the break, mine was 2006. Now, you're going to say, Lockie's try to win the game in the final moments. No, it's Brent Tate's try in the 71st minute. Jonathan Thurston steps inside Luke O'Donnell. Just perfectly timed pass right in the lap of Brent Tate. He runs 50 metres, scores under the goalpost to make it 14-8. Then goes 14-10. And that's what puts the position for Lockyer to score the try.
Did he ask you to nominate him for that one?
Brent Whitten Tate up there in Townsville? Yes, he was. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Hey, let's get to a break, and up next we're going to dive into last night's game, the Friday night game, Parramatta up against Manly, and we're going to catch up with our very good friend, Greg Brandy Alexander. Yeah, welcome back to the show. Greg Alexander coming up very soon for Saturday League kickoff, and we hope your weekend has started out as good as it possibly can. Hope we can add to that as well. All your texts are very important. 0457 736 736. And Peter says, good afternoon, Sats. Love your idea, but it has to be done on the Opera House steps.
Ooh.
Magpie Swanee says.
That gives New South Wales the advantage. It's not on neutral ground.
I know. A lot of lovers, actually. Not so much for Gerard Whateley. No way he's neutral. He's a Mexican. They hate New South Welshmen, the Melbournians. Go the Blues, Knights 13+. Love Mort from Port Kembla as well. A lot of love, actually, for the press conference, UFC style. Something like this should also be done for the naming of the team. HP Robbo says, I've always thought about it, and do it at Twin Towns, which is right on the border of Queensland and New South Wales. I love it.
So it's actually like this with the past players, because what happens during grand final week, the NRL tries to get the players and the coaches from both sides sitting at the same table. It just feels really awkward.
Yep.
Like, you don't want to say anything inflammatory when the other coach and the other players are just sitting like literally from me to you away. But when you've got the past players and you've got the nostalgia, all those great stories that they can tell, fantastic.
Exactly. And shout out to Ralphie as well, who's sitting in his office, just sent a photo, and he's got 4 screens, 3 of them racing. One of them is Saturday League kickoff. So well done, Ralphie, to you on the Gold Coast. Hey, let's get him on the line. Is Greg Brandy Alexander, who covered the game last night for Fox League, Manly versus Parramatta. Brandy, how are you?
Good, Sats. Good to talk, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate, on this Saturday morning. 30 points to 10, comprehensive win in by the Eels. And thank you very much to Temper. He would have slept very well overnight. Jason Riles, we know that. We're going to get your nomination for the Temper Player of the Match, who would have slept well last night. But where are we at with Para? What are you making them at the moment? Are they still in a position, Brandy, where they're still working out how they want to play under a new coach?
Well, I think they are, Sats. It's I know, but Jason Riles, had to hold his nerve over the first month of the premiership, and must have been a lot of thinking about. But they were playing without Mitch Moses too, so I think to put that performance in last night without Mitch and without Zach Lomax, I think will do wonders for their confidence. And I guess when you're looking at the game last night, wondering how they go without Mitch and Zach, who were both very good against Newcastle in their win last week. I thought there'd been enough improvement in the side all around those two key players to have you believe that the Eels were a good chance against Manly last night, even though Manly only had basically DCE. I know Jake wasn't there, but DCE out of the side because of Origin. He was the only one, so. I thought it was a really strong win. And they lost Will Penisini in the first minute and a half. It's never easy when you lose an outside back. And Jordan Samrani, who's done a good job, he can play back row or centre. Joash Papalii came on the field and played well. Deboo scored a try on debut. So, in all, Sats, I think Jason Riles, listening to him last night, they are making good steps, and that was a big step last night to do it without those two players.
Brandy, interested in your thoughts on the fullbacks. Obviously, Turbo was overlooked for Origin. His confidence is a little bit down, and unfortunately, it looks like he's carrying an injury of sorts. And then, of course, the other number one was young Oyongi, and there was so much talk about whether Parramatta did the right thing in letting Clint Gutherson go, but we're seeing some green shoots with Parramatta, and particularly Yongi, like he, and you know him from your time in the Panthers system as well.
Look, he was an outstanding kid last year in the New South Wales Cup. Got a taste of first grade, came onto the field in only one game. So it was a big call for Jason Riles to go, you know what, Gutho, you can move on. I've got other ideas for the fullback position, which I'm sure he felt too. Isaiah felt that pressure of, wow, I'm filling the boots of someone who has been instrumental in the Eels being good over the last 6 or 7 years. And I thought even right back to the start of the season, when in the first month when they were losing Adrian, I thought Isaiah, there was good signs from Isaiah then, but he's developing very quickly, and last night was outstanding, and he has been on occasions. It's past that first month when they were losing footy. I like what I see, and I was a little bit worried about. And I guess there's just question marks. I knew he had the talent, but I was just wondering how consistent he would be in his first season. But he's been very consistent and consistently getting better. So really good signs. Turbo was obviously went into the game without any strapping, which was a good sign. And I did think, and we thought on the panel last night that Turbo was in for a big game, but just look, you had some good moments in the first half, but Manly's form Manly's play in the second half certainly didn't help him. It was a tough go for Turbo last night.
Hey, some significant signings, and you always look to see what effect they have on your side, Brandy. But Dylan Walker coming from the Warriors to Parramatta, he's just added something to them, that spark, the speed, the skill that he's got. It's again last night he proved a handful.
Yeah, he's a good player, Sats, isn't he? And I think everyone thought that he'd offer that to Parramatta, but been very effective. Yep, since the moment he walked into the side, he's taken a lot of pressure off the halves. He just gives the Eels another option in attack. He's very good at what he does, going to the line. He threw a dummy last night and opened them up, which led to a try. So that's been a really good pickup in the early part of the season, so well done to Jason Riles and the Eels recruitment team in identifying Walker. Certainly had a positive effect on them. And I think that helped Dean Hawkins last night as well, who was outstanding. We sort of, before the game, you thought Dylan Brown needs to stand up, but it was Dean Hawkins that played, kicked well, was involved in all the tries, really had a big game.
Brandy, interested in your impressions of Jason Riles about halfway through the season. It felt to me like Jason has made a lot of the harsh calls, the really tough calls at Parramatta early. He hasn't looked for short-term success, and we mentioned moving on Clint Gutherson. There's also a lot of high-profile guys that have played reserve grade this year in terms of Bryce Cartwright, Sean Lane, also Ryan Madison, who was back in the side. What are your thoughts about Parramatta under Jason Riles and the direction that they're heading in?
Well, he's been impressive so far. You can't judge too heavily, Adrian. We're only halfway through a season, but he's stuck to his guns. He's made some tough calls, and obviously he came in and thought the senior players need to change. We need to go in a new direction with Gutho and Regan Campbell-Gillard not offered deals. And you're right, it's almost a first grade pack playing in the New South Wales Cup for the Eels. So all those players that have been on the edge, but playing first grade over the last few years under Brad Arthur, obviously will need to find new clubs, and that'll work its way out over the next sort of 6 to 12 to 18 months, depending on the length of contract for those players. But I think they've got a good idea of where they've headed, and that's elsewhere. So it's been impressive. You can only take your hat off to a man that makes decisions, big decisions, and I think they're starting to pay off.
Yeah. Now let's look on the flip side. Manly now, Brandy, where are they at? Because they've lost 5 of their last 7. When you look at the statistics from last night, Brandy, they were very equal across the board. But I think you mentioned the control of the halves for Para was probably what won them the game in the end. But they had this game plan where as soon as young Papalii came on, that they were attacking down that side, they seemed to just go away from it in that second half.
I know, Sats. Well, Lehigh Nelly scored his third try at a stage through that game, and it was Papalii's tackle on him that denied him. It was just a hand down on the ground. He looked like he'd done enough to score, but you're right. I don't know if they sort of and their ball control was good, Sats. Like they only they didn't complete 4 sets, so it wasn't the errors that cost them, and so many times it's a throwaway line, isn't it? When a team loses, you go, oh, they made errors, but that wasn't the case with Manly last night. They just weren't good enough when they had the ball, which would have been disappointing for Anthony Seibold. I mentioned Luke Brooks before kickoff and said last year when Cherry was out of action because of Origin, Luke Brooks really failed to put his stamp on the side, and I thought he did again last night. I just think for an experienced player, who's had some good moments this year, but with Jake Arthur at halfback, Luke Brooks needed to take control of that team. Really needed to do a lot with the ball and be the focal point of Manly's attack, but just didn't do it. I don't know where the Eagles are, to be honest, Sats. You're 5 of 7. They beat a Cowboys side who are very disappointing. Like, when you think about the performance last week for Manly when they beat the Cowboys up there, it's good. They travelled to Townsville. They got the win. Cowboys were dreadful.
Yeah.
Manly were okay, and I thought Hopewadi and Saab were good. Ben Trebojevic played well last week, and they missed him last night. But I don't want you don't want to rain on a club's parade when they get a win, but I don't know. The last couple of months just hasn't looked good for Manly, because when they've been beaten, they've been beaten and played not well at all. Melbourne, the Sharks twice, even though the Sharks in Perth was a close game on the scoreboard. Really, the Sharks weren't great that day either, but they did enough to win pretty comfortably. Or the scoreboard didn't show it. They were Manly weren't great in round 10 when they got beaten by the Sharks again. I guess their best performance over the last 7 or 8 weeks has been the win over Penrith, where they were very good and their middles were good. I guess they get a couple of middles back next week in Toff Sipley and Alloy A. That might help. It's hard to know. I guess they're like a lot of sides, Sats. It's been a very inconsistent year for teams, and that's why the season has been so interesting, because teams are struggling to play good footy week in, week out. Even the Melbourne Storm, who are still the favourites for the comp, it's gone win-loss, win-loss, win-loss for them.
Yeah, you're right. If you can put 3 or 4 in a row together, you're right up amongst them once again. Now, before we get to the end, before we let you go, I should say, Brandy, a great night's sleep night after night. That is the difference. The difference is temper. Who's the player from last night that you watched that would had a good night's sleep last night?
Oh, I reckon he went out and had a few drinks first, and then he had a good night's sleep. But it's got to be Dean Hawkins. 4 try assists last night. Great kicking game. Kept putting it back in the 10-metre area, which saw Manly work it out of their own end a lot. And he stood up. No Mitch Moses, and that's his best game in first grade without a doubt. So I'm saying a dozen. And then a good night's sleep on the bed.
Good stuff. And well done to Junior Bolo as well, 250 games. Hey, Brandy, thank you very much for catching up on a Saturday morning.
Nice, boys. Good to chat.
Yeah, he's a good man, Brandy Alexander, one of the best analysts in the game. Let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff and all the big news from out the week, which is Galvin and the Bears as well. Welcome back to Saturday League Kickoff, simulcast live on Fox League, wherever you're watching. Welcome to the show, and also to all our loyal listeners across the SEN network as well. Get involved in the show. 0457 736 736 is our text line. And if you want to give us a call like Pete from Townsville did, 1300 01 1170. I think Peter is an alias for Brent Tate.
Oh, is that right?
I'm not quite sure.
When you mentioned his magic moment, was that pre or post neck brace?
No, that was during neck brace.
During neck brace.
Yeah, I think it was well entrenched to his neck brace here. Yeah, exactly. Hey, we've got a lot of love across the show as well. People loving the format between Fox League and also SEN as well. Morning, fellas. And this is about Latrell. I think Latrell will be more worried about his family and the cows being underwater near Taree than talking to the media. Love the show, Mark from Crestmead. And a big shout out to everyone across the mid-coast and northern New South Wales who had suffered a lot of damage over the last week. And you are right, you make a really good point there, Mark, is that Latrell has got family and a big property in Taree, and not sure whether it suffered any damage, but it would have been at the forefront of his mind. I don't think it's got anything with him to do with not talking to the media, but he has got some other pressures on his mind.
I'd love to hear about that. I mean, he's not just playing for himself, and Latrell never just plays for himself. He plays for his people, for the Indigenous community, and obviously for the Taree community as well. And that would be a great origin story in the days leading up to the game, and hopefully he changes his mind and decides to share his thoughts about that and all things rugby league, really.
Exactly. And on Kane says on the text line, morning, boys, watching on Fox, did Webby go to Turkey during the week? Now, there has been rumours that there is a journalist that did go to Turkey.
Yes.
And has come back with a beautiful, lush set of hair.
Well, let's just say before this alleged Turkey trip, it was like this journalist had a head like Yoda with none of the wisdom in it. Like it was just a couple of strands here and there. So, yeah, that's all the talk in rugby league circles at the moment.
Are we allowed to name the said
Oh,
journalist?
that's up to you. I won't do that.
Is his surname named, does it rhyme with a Lebanese favourite dish?
It
or not?
may well do.
Okay, right. Hey, let's get to the big news of the week and keep your texts coming in 0457 736 736. Galvin. Now, we can talk about Galvin, the stadiums. Just quickly on the stadiums. I think as a fan, like we said earlier on, it just makes sense that South and the Roosters play at the same stadium.
Yep.
Like Tony Staggs did in the first year of the Broncos. This is our house. You can see maybe a South or a Roosters fan player doing that after a try is scored, whatever it may be. But Lachie Galvin, that has, again, reared its, I'm not going to say it's ugly head. I think it's sad that he's not going to play out his contract at the West Tigers. But it must be that untenable now that there is a chance that he may not play another game at the West Tigers. Now, before we make comment about this, Michael Carianis, he caught up with myself and Matty Rogers on Sports Day, and he said pretty much that about Lachie Galvin.
It does rest in the Tigers' hands, right? Because the Tigers have a contracted player there, so they need to make that final decision. I just don't think it's going to come to that, Sats. I think he's probably played his last game for the Tigers.
That bewildered me that it would finish that quickly. Now there are some conditions that there's a transfer fee that a club has got to be able to commit to, and also the bullying claim be dropped.
Yeah.
Now if the bullying claim is dropped, does that mean there was no said bullying? Because if you feel strongly about that, you continue with it. You don't drop it as part of a condition.
No, that was always part of a larger game to get him out of the club. And it was always going to come to this. So you drop the bullying claim, we'll get out. The Tigers need to get a win out of it somehow. I thought that potentially it might have happened via a player transfer, but Richardson wants a transfer fee, which is fine. But
Can you just let people know what now Karl Oluwapu, this very impressive young, plays in the halves, sort of play anywhere. Karl Oluwapu went from the Broncos to the Bulldogs. It was a $500,000 transfer fee, which I'm led to believe doesn't come off your salary cap. It comes off the soft cap, which is the football operations money. Every club's got a certain amount of money, like a salary cap. You got to be able to fit all your NRL first grade staff into.
Yeah.
Okay, so apparently it comes off that. So what's the transfer fee amount?
So look, they're talking about an amount somewhere between like 160,000 and 180,000, and both the clubs that are interested in him, both Parramatta and the Bulldogs, are prepared to pay that. It's a pretty small price to pay for what could be a generational player in the form of Lachlan Galvin. And the interesting thing is that Gus Gould, right from the start, said, no, we're not interested. And Gus at times does have a difficult relationship with the truth.
That's message for, I don't want to put pressure on our current playing group, and smart. It's very smart.
But at the same time...
But in the background...
Yeah. Well, the other message that he was sending is that Toby Sexton is still off contract. He hasn't been re-signed. They're top of the table, and he's been using terms like he's on a journey of development, whatever that means when he's ever been asked, is there a contract going to be given to Toby Sexton? But for mine, Phil Gould has been pitching to Lachlan Galvin for 12 months, very publicly, whether it be on his podcast or other platforms, talking about the fact that there's going to be premierships wherever he goes, that he's going to be the highest paid player in the game at some point. And he has a connection with Luke Vella, who's on the coaching staff of the Bulldogs. But at the same time, I'm just not sure it works as well as if he moves to Parramatta, because there's a very specific role if he goes to Parramatta. He's going to go there. He's going to be playing alongside Mitchell Moses. We know that Lachlan Galvin's manager is Isaac Moses, who's related to Mitch. You sort of think that
I think deep down Isaac wants to make Parramatta successful again.
And I just don't know where he fits in to the Canterbury side. So if they see him as a lock, then that's all well and good. But I can't see him and Dearden. I don't think either of them are a 7. 12 months ago, there were question marks over whether or not Dearden was a 6.
Yep.
I think he's proven that he is, but I just don't know if that works with Lachlan Galvin playing alongside
They've got a
of
kid
him.
coming through their ranks. He's not ready yet.
Mitchell Woods. Outstanding.
Yeah, he's a good little player. Not ready yet. And we've got a question there, and you pretty much answered it then from 877. Says, do you choose a dog based on current form and where you really fit in the spine, or Eels based on new youth, whereby both hooker and fullback are gun juniors? So It is an interesting question. You do touch on the Luke Vella, and we actually touched on that a number of weeks ago on this show when it first broke that he has got this relationship with Luke Vella, who was his coach at Westfield Boys High. There's a tattoo that says, what is it? NFE?
Not for everybody.
Not for everyone,
Yep.
which is a phrase that Luke Vella has said to players.
Yep.
The NRL is not for everyone. You've got to make these amazing sacrifices to be an NRL player. So you've got mentorship as opposed to potentially more dollars.
Yep.
At Parramatta, Dylan Brown goes, there's anywhere from sort of 800 to 950 available.
Yep.
And then the Bulldogs, where you've got that strict connection and an emotional connection to a coach. So it's going to be interesting the way that he goes. I think his parents will play a major role in this decision.
His dad's a massive Parramatta
Yep.
fan. You talk about making sacrifices as well. If this was just a money play, and clearly it isn't, he'd stay at West Tigers because they're the only club that were able to upgrade him for this year because they're obviously the incumbent club. They were offering him millions of dollars and he knocked it back. He didn't even want to see their offer. So he's going to take a haircut to play at either of those two clubs. And the interesting thing is, whichever one he chooses, his first game will be against the team that he knocks back. So Parramatta and the Bulldogs are
after
scheduled
June 30. Before June 30.
Yeah, before then. They're scheduled to play in the next little bit. So can you imagine that? That'll just add a bit of spice to that game.
NRL marketing backing back and just sitting back and just rubbing their hands beautifully. So what's your gut going to tell you?
Hard to get around. I've been hearing he was done at Parramatta ages ago. Then I've heard he's going to the Bulldogs. I reckon we'll find out in the next 24 hours.
My gut is telling me Bulldogs. I think Sexton will be, I think they've loved what
He'll
Sexton's
be
done
collateral
for them.
damage?
Yeah, I think he will. And I think there's a part of Toby Sexton that doesn't want to happen. But I think Toby Sexton learned a lot about what happened at the Gold Coast Titans. That, growing up as a Gold Coast kid, you just think that things are going to get handed to you. There's a lot of creature comforts on the Gold Coast. And when they say, we don't want you anymore, I think he sat up and has gone, you know what? You do have to work really hard for this game, and he's done a great job of what he's done to get to where he's got to now and leading that Bulldogs team around.
So where does that leave Mitch Woods? So he's the guy that they've anointed. They've said long term, we believe this is the guy.
Well, I think Lachlan Galvin's going to be a 13. I think he's going to be a ball playing 13.
So there's a room in their side where Mitch Woods, Lachlan Galvin, and
come down to
Matt
money as well.
Burton will all be part of that. Part of that team. Okay.
So the Bundy Tian says, morning all. Toby Sexton back to the Titans. Lachlan Galvin to the Bulldogs. Reynolds to the Tigers. Dearden back to the Broncos. I can probably see a lot of that happening, but I can't see Dearden going back to the Broncos, Bundy. I think he's very happy up there as a co-captain. But Adam Reynolds apparently has confirmed that he's had an approach from the West Tigers.
Apparently so. I'd be very surprised if he goes there. For 1 year, I think his family are very settled. But you talk about domino effects, and Bundy just mentioned that. But if he let's say Lachlan Galvin goes to Parramatta, what does that do for Dylan Brown? Does he leave straight away? Does he go to Newcastle? Does Kai Pearce-Paul go to West Tigers, for instance? So there's all of these different domino effects that can happen.
Yep. So there's plenty to play out with that, and we know it's going to dominate headlines for a number of weeks. Now let's get on to the Bears coming into the competition 2027. Exciting times for Western Australian sporting fans, not just rugby league fans. There are a lot of expats over there that are rugby league fans that have gone over for the mining and have stayed there as well. Beautiful. You've spent much time in Perth?
No.
It's a beautiful city. It is a beautiful city. It's a hell of a long trip to get over there. But in saying that, it's exciting times. And being part of a couple of startup clubs, one that came to fruition at the Titans, one that didn't get off the ground with the 17th licence, it is an exciting time. So I think the biggest discussion around this is they've got their CEO. Who's going to be their general manager of rugby league? I'm hearing Tristan Hay from NRL.
Well, I'm hearing that he was on a shortlist for the Dragons job.
Okay, so the ARLC will make a lot of the appointments because they're going to run the club operationally. And Mal Meniga seems to be the person that if he wants it, he'll get the job. But I think we all agree that there needs to be someone there that a little bit like the Wayne Bennett, Christian Wolf succession plan. I think that's got to be the situation. So, Kevy Walters, both Mal and Kevy are Fox League presenters as well. Going to go head to head. They both declared their interests as well. Sam Burgess was thrown into the mix as well, and he's only second year into his coaching of Warrington. First year was a very successful year, Challenge Cup final, beaten by Wigan. Second year has been a little bit more challenging, but has got them through to a Challenge Cup final against Hull KR in a couple of weeks. So a lot to play at. Before I get your opinion here, AP, one thing I do know about the head coach of a new franchise, you basically carry the entire load until players start arriving on your doorstep in October with their families. You do all the media, you do the recruitment, you do all the community, the community, whether they're promotions, whatever they may be. Building a football department along with the general manager, building a centre of excellence as well. You carry the entire load. And at 65, I don't know. If you're watching, give us a call, 1300 01 1170. We'd love to hear how much you would love to be the inaugural coach of the Perth Bears. At 65, it's a big job.
It's a big job, but look, all those names that you mentioned are all worthy candidates, right? I'm hearing that they've called on Sam Burgess, that obviously Brad Arthur, everyone thought that he was going to be the P for the gig initially. I'm hearing it'll be Mal Meniga if he wants it. And it's sort of that Kevin Sheedy effect when GWS first came into Sydney. It's about coming in, spreading the gospel of rugby league. I know that it is an AFL town. There's also a feeling that with Mal Meniga being involved in representative setups for so long in Queensland and then Australia, that potentially with some of those guys off contract, he might be able to jag some of those big names that will be coming off contract and free agents in the next little bit. So he's more than just a coach, he's a figurehead. And you talked about surrounding yourself with good people. Mal has always done that. Like, look at his assistants over the years, guys like Michael Hagan, Anthony Seibold, I think Josh Hannay, the list goes on. So they'll have a good coaching team if that's the way they want to go, and that'll get a bit of cut through to in a real AFL town.
Do you know, you touched on a name just then. I think Josh Hannay would be worthy of consideration of, and I know he's got a man of great principles, Josh Hannay, and his allegiance to the Sharks as well, and Craig Fitzgibbon, and while his contract time has been there, but he would be worthy of looking into as being that coach that coaches under Mal for a couple of years. Brad Arthur could be another one. I mean, I know his wife is from Western Australia, so he would be a great opportunity also for him to go back to Australia, serve for 2 years under Mal. Mal, from a recruitment point of view, makes more sense to me. Because he was very influential in getting Tino over the line at the Gold Coast Titans. So I think there's a lot of upside for Mal being involved in a new team. What are your thoughts? 0457 736 736. If you're in WA like Braden is and listens to the show each and every night, give us your thoughts. And if you want to give us a call, 1300 01 1170. This is Saturday League Kickoff. More after the break. Saturday League Kickoff. Normally Sats and Webby has just sent a photo through of him sitting at home watching the show. So shout out to you, Webby. Hope you're well. AP is filling in admirably for you. He's been bagging you during the breaks. He's trying to just sneak in there.
Trust me, your job is very safe, Webby. Don't worry.
Hey, just to recap the first hour, we had Greg Alexander join us. And if you want to catch up on the first hour of the show, if you did miss, you can just get the podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. Just go into the SEN app as well, and they'll all be downloaded there as soon as possible. Had some good intakes when it comes to Parramatta, where they're at the moment, and also Manly, where they're at the moment as well. So, it was good to hear from Brandy. The big news of the week as well, there's a lot of news in going on with the Bears and the stadiums and whatever it may be. But we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more. You've been great with your reviews and your love of the show. We're going to go for the full 2 hours on Fox League, wherever you're watching the show as well. And also welcome to our SEN listeners. Like we do each and every week with our shows throughout the week. Your feedback is really important to us. 0457 736 736 is the number. We've got plenty of text to get to about expansion, about Origin, the Origin presser idea that we had. We've got Para Steve that's saying not a lot of para bashing going on today, which is good to hear. And also Lundy has got his texts about where the Origin presser should be held. And I Googled where he said it should be held in Woolloomooloo, and I shan't be saying it on air. So thanks, Lundy, for your input.
Should it be in the Tweed? Like not on either side, actually in it?
In the Tweed.
Yes.
So Twin Towns Services Club basically sits smack bang on the border of New South Wales and Queensland. It is perfect. It is perfect. So as Timmy Manners he's just about to crash our TV set just then to our left. Good to see Timmy, the line of Lebanon. Coming up, the Saturday footy. There's just the 2 games. We'll talk a lot more about Walsh and the Broncos. I don't think it's worth talking about anymore, but we've got plenty of text there about it as well. And look ahead to Sunday games as well. Crunch time coming on after us for SEN listeners as well. We'll take all your calls, 1300 01 1170. Okay, let's get into Thursday night because it was a great performance by the Dolphins. 44 points to 8, they defeated the Bulldogs. Now, the Bulldogs, you've got to remember, they don't have players that are out because of Origin, but they have got a long list of suspended and injured players as well. So heavily depleted, but it doesn't matter. You just got to play against the people that go on the field each and every week, and the Dolphins did an amazing job at dismantling the Bulldogs side. 44 points to 8. I never saw it coming, AP.
Yeah, it just got rolled in the middle. And, how good
physicality and defence from the Dolphins has been the best this season. So well done, Christian, Benny Wolf and the coaching staff.
Kurt Donohue's my new favourite player.
What about his broken nose?
Mate, gets
that
it
was
fixed,
horrific.
Runs out, plays his heart out, drops an F-bomb at half-time as he's walking off the field, and then scores a meat pie. Like, how good.
Yep. Torrential rain, of course, 7 tries to 1. And the Bulldogs have been so good this year across all facets of the game. But the conditions sometimes play havoc with the game plan. If you're used to playing this play through the middle through your big forwards and your mobile forwards like they've got a lot of really good mobile forwards with a lot of footwork. It brings you back into the field a little bit. You know, you can tighten the defence up a lot more. And what becomes abundantly important during the rain is your kicking game.
Yeah.
Now, arguably the Bulldogs got the best kicker in the game in Matty Burton. So he put up a few towering bombs that they got the answer that they required. But in saying that, unable to convert into any sort of valuable points.
But then on the flip side, you've got Isaiah Katoa. Like, a guy so young is just so mature. Like, It was amazing to see him and just the way he controlled the tempo of the game and knowing the conditions and recognising what works and whether it was turning a player in, change of direction, which has made it really hard for the defenders to adjust in slippery conditions, pinning them down in their own territory. He is going to be probably the next New South Wales halfback for a long, long time.
Would it be fair to say he'll play 15 Origins?
It's a lot of pressure to put on someone.
But yes. You look at some of the great halfbacks that have played 28, 30, 30 Origins. And this kid's 21.
Yeah.
And he's got so measured. He's so controlled in his game. Even when he's just getting a simple kick away on the 5th tackle, it's just done with just such a great tempo. He doesn't rush into anything. He's well beyond his years.
He's sound defensively too. He's a larger body.
Well, he's a big kid when you get up alongside him.
You talk about getting ahead of ourselves. Lachlan Galvin and Isaiah Katoa in Origin for 10 years. Potentially?
Yeah, potential. I mean, Isaiah Katoa is that good. I think that if Nathan Cleary wasn't available, I would definitely think that he would be discussed at great lengths. Now, you've got to remember, when Nathan Cleary was picked as his debut, I think he was 21 at the time.
Yeah.
I'm reading Ivan Cleary's book, which is a very good book and written by Andrew Webster, mind you. And he put in there that he actually called Brad Fittler and said, please don't pick Nathan in Origin. I just don't think he's ready for it, like emotionally.
Yeah. And
he picked him anyway, and he's turned out to be one of the, will turn out to be one of the great halves. But Katoa's he's on the same pathway.
But even, Ivan Cleary, he was obviously in the system at Panthers. So he could have waited a couple of years. Jerome Luai's gone. So he would have been playing alongside Nathan Cleary for as long as he wanted to.
Yep. But
he made the brave decision to say, I'm going to go to a startup franchise. I'm going to go to the Dolphins. I'm going to learn my trade under Wayne Bennett. It's a bit of the unknown up there. You don't know who you're going to be playing behind.
True.
And he's made it work.
Yep, he has. Mark from Canberra says, do you think the Dogs not being a wet weather footy team is a thing? They do seem to struggle in the wet. Well, but they shouldn't, Mark, because like I said, they've got such a great kicking game. Toby Sexton hasn't got a long kicking game, but he's got a very good short kicking game. Well, I think it's a good short kicking game. But you don't need another long kicker when you've got someone like Matt Burton that can push them out 60 metres. So they should have been better. But in saying that, they just came up against a team that were far more physical.
can you read too much into it? Like, they're a team that have been up for a long, long time. You know, they didn't play to the conditions as well as we would have expected, but I'm expecting a bounce back from the Bulldogs.
Everyone has a hiccup.
Exactly. You can't be up all the
it's a
time
second
and
loss.
be 10 out of 10.
It happens. It happens. And I know that Cameron Ciraldo will be disappointed with the loss and probably more disappointed about how they did get manhandled at different stages of the game physically through the forward pack.
Yeah.
And the Dolphins forwards just stood shoulder to shoulder. And there was, you had to do a fair bit to penetrate. And the only way you can penetrate them is by kicking early and getting the turnaround and get behind the ball. And I just think the Dolphins managed the game a lot better. Now, Cameron Ciraldo knows it's not ideal, but he also knows that he's got a team that you can also use the wins that they've had to gather momentum. You're now a team that's walking around with a bit of a strut, and that's a good thing. Yeah. So thanks for your text. The Bulldogs might have had some out of the Dolphins, had 6 top players out as well. Yeah, so we've got a couple of people have texted in about that. The Dolphins have had as many players out, more key players, spine players as well, than the Dogs. And this is what this time of year is all about, isn't it, AP? Where you've got to start dipping into your resources.
I'm actually excited. Like, some people say that the NRL loses a bit of its luster because there are so many big names out. You take 34 of the biggest stars out of the game. But I'm excited to see these young guys. Like last night, watching Joash Papalii. I'm going to get it right.
Yeah.
Joash Papalii. Seeing these young guys who don't normally get a go have an opportunity and take it with both hands. And he's been waiting. He was like 18th man for 5, 6, 7 weeks in a row. Finally gets his chance. And we're going to see more of these guys over the next 5 or 6 weeks as the Origin period unfolds.
That's what I love about Origin.
We'll see these young guys get bladed, and we'll find out really quickly whether they're worth persisting with and whether they have an NRL future in front of them.
See, once upon a time, didn't we, listeners and viewers on Fox League and SEN, once upon a time you used to turn up at 12 o'clock and used to watch under-21s, reserve grade, first grade. And you could follow the progression of an 18-year-old that comes into under-21s all the way through to first grade, and you feel as though you're part of their journey. We don't get to do that as much these days. Yes, there's more access to vision, but we don't get to sit on the hill and watch them grow as a player as well. And this is why the Origin period is so important, because you get these young players that get maybe their first or their only game of the 2025 season to show what they're worth. And even though young Papalii last night, Joash, and even though he was a Bulldogs player, still to hear different commentators who have had something to do with his upbringing and his development in the game talk about his journey. His journey through into first grade is really interesting.
And it's actually one of our friends of the show, Dearden Kemp. He has a segment on his Bloke in a Bar podcast where he looks at young players, and I remember watching one where he talked about Joash, and he said that he had a left foot step from the gods. It was basically similar to that of Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, and it's funny in that, again, he was going to be dummy half. That was the whole plan for all week. He goes in there, he trains at dummy half, and then after 2 minutes, because of Will Penasini's injury, he has to go in and basically ad-lib it on the, in the three-quarter line.
Well, he put a right foot step on when there was 4 covering defenders and still scored his first try in the NRL. Very exciting. Now, I'm about to read a text from a guy that is not renowned for his sense of humour, okay? And he's attempted to tell a joke here, okay? He's going to go by the name of Clive Churchill. Also known, his name rhymes with Luke Prittis. He said, Dolphins were always going to win this game in the flooding rain. Fish in water.
Very good.
That's a dad joke, isn't it?
Joke.
Yeah, it's a dad joke. Hey, now, Christian Wolf, he would have been very happy with the side and the way they played on Thursday night. As we said, 44 points to 8 in favour of the Dolphins. This is what he had to say post-game.
Really happy. It was a quality game of footy in the conditions, and I liked our intent right from the start. You could see that we were ready to play and carried through with that for the whole game. So a little bit of reward at the end there where they got to enjoy themselves, but very happy overall. Look, at the end there, I suppose a bit of pressure's off when the game's won, so we could throw the ball around a bit and enjoy it. We had our periods where we were well on top and we did stick to our game plan, but what we did really well was when they had their opportunities, I thought we defended terrific. We gave them a bit of opportunity there in the second half, and you could see they got a bit of energy and they've been coming home over the top of teams in doing that. I thought we defended really well in those periods.
Yeah, they were. They're outstanding. Frank from Frankston says the Bulldogs got Ray stoned. Couldn't handle the pressure. What about him?
He's a machine.
So his shoulder, apparently both shoulders are a little bit dodgy, but to see him for a whole set just throw his body, it reminded me of Paul Bowman in an Origin game when he did his knee, and he just kept getting up off the ground and throwing his body into tackles. And that's what Ray Stone was last week. He was on Thursday night. It was amazing. He showed his teammates what you've got to do, what you're willing to do to get the win.
I think he famously, in a game for Parramatta against Melbourne, I think he might have even done his ACL or something, but he chased down a kick and he got there, he scores the try, even though he's busted, and they win the game. Like, that's Ray Stone. And
that was when he was para.
Yeah,
it was too. It was in extra time.
Sats, we talk about rookies as well. I'm actually excited for rookie coaches like Jason Riles, and then we just heard from Christian Wolf. Like, he's a guy who's been, again, in Wayne Bennett's shadow. Like, so many before him have gone and failed, and like, whether all the way back from Henjack to Steve Price to Jason Demetrio, and the weight that comes from following him in. And they lost a few games early in the season, and for them to come back and show something, I reckon it's terrific for him and terrific for all of Queensland Rugby League as well. They need the Dolphins to be competitive, and they are. Yeah,
well said. We've got a lot of dad jokes here. Silver Shark, Dolphins can swim better. Surely Clive, this is the Marsden Shotto says on the text line, surely Clive knows that dolphins are mammals. Did you know dolphin was a mammal? You didn't know.
Now.
I know you're a learned man, but you didn't know that a dolphin was a mammal.
Now.
Now, we were discussing a lot of issues in the first hour. If you did miss the first hour, you can get it on the podcast on the SEN app. Just go to the SEN app and download it. You can find the podcast of the show. Morning, boys. Around Origin, I think last night Turbo justified his non-selection for New South Wales. Laurie on the money. Great win for Para. The boys are starting to buy into the coaching, the Port Macquarie Eel. I think elite players play really good at elite level, and I thought Tommy injected himself at times and proved how important he is to that side as a point of attack and had a hand in a couple of tries. But I just think with the recovery from where he's come back from, it was always going to be difficult for him to put him in Origin. The amount of workload he was going to be asked to do. As a Queenslander, I wish they put him on the wing.
Yeah, you just couldn't though. Like, who are you going to like? There was a lot of concern from Laurie Daly about having two wingers who've only played one NRL game in the lead up.
Yep.
But then Brian To'o came back so well, and then Zach Lomax absolutely brained it for Parramatta, and he gave him no choice. And after watching basically Tommy Labour the last couple of weeks, like, he's trying hard, but he's not fully fit. He's a little bit down on confidence. It's not to say that he can't play some role in the series, but just not at the moment.
Yep. Now, we talked about our Origin presser as well, which is the UFC-style presser. Queensland legends on one side, New South Wales on the other side. Now, you want to see Origin players and how much it means to the jersey means to them face-to-face with Vonnie Sampson this week as we go into Origin. Choppy close.
Yeah.
There's no more passionate man when it comes to the Queensland jersey and Origin in general. How much he would openly talk about wanting to hurt and maim as many people in Blues jerseys as possible. Do we want that? I think we do.
Yes, we do.
It's part of us.
Of course we do.
So this Origin presser allows the former Origin greats just to tee off on each other. Now, the Senny Coaster says, call it the Beats and Rodonigus fire-up session.
Yes.
Former Origin greats just going at each other with insults for an hour. I love it.
That's what they actually used to do. So for all of the hate and enmity between those guys, they used to do that in the last years of their lives. Like, they used to go around all the hotels, get 3 or 4 schooners into them, go up and regale everyone with all of those great Origin stories. They became such great mates later in life too.
Shane Wright here says, question is in relation to access to players. We spoke about Latrell and Spencer, no access with the media at the moment. American sports stars seem to hold themselves a lot better than the Aussie stars. Do you think it's due to the money and accountability? They can be a little bit out there, the American stars as well, because they do have money as well. Roger Goodall, who's the commissioner for the NFL, he comes down considerably hard on some of them, but not as hard on the biggest stars. And like we always say, the stars get treated differently to other athletes. It's just the way. It's the way they're marketed for their clubs or their sports.
I think that's part of the reason why we so much want to hear from Latrell, because in Australia, unlike America, it's tall poppy syndrome. We don't like guys who want to big it up and talk themselves up, whereas Latrell does that, and it's different. And different's good. I love that sort of stuff.
I think our age demographic don't like it, but I think there's a large portion of the Australian sporting public now that they get it. They love it because they love watching the American promotion of athletes and documentaries we see now, the access we get. I think some of the younger fans want to see more of that now, and they're doing it through podcasts and vlog. Is it a vlog?
It's a vlog.
With a V, not a B.
With a V.
With a V. Okay. Now, if you want to give us a call, 1300 01 1170 is the number. Whatever you want to talk about, happy to talk about it, whether it's Manly, Dolphins, Parramatta, the Doggies, Queensland, New South Wales, whatever it may be, we want to hear from you. This is Saturday League Kickoff. Scotty Sattler, Adrian the Mad Russian Proszenko is in the seat for Andrew Webster. We're going to be back with more after this. Yeah, we're back on a Saturday morning. Hope it started out a great weekend so far, wherever you're watching. And again, our thoughts go out to those that have been affected around the mid and north coast of New South Wales with the floods over the recent 4 or 5 days. It's horrific sights, and I hope everyone's going to get through it the best way they can. And let's hope that the government get behind a lot of those that have been affected as well. We've got a lot of texts coming in around a number of issues we've covered in the last hour and a quarter, AP, and your input has been great. And before we get to the Saturday games, which is starting off with Panthers up against the Knights, 5:30 this afternoon, I love nothing more than a regional game. I love Bathurst. I love it. The old Bathurst Penguins. Used to be still is a strong region of rugby league. There's some Panthers players, Liam Henry, who is nicknamed Horse, who is from Blaney, obviously around that area as well. So we're going to get to that very soon. But first and foremost, like we said, we love getting your calls. 1300 01 1170 is the number. And we've got Greg from the Riff is on the line. How are you, Greg?
G'day, mate. It's lovely to talk to you. How you going?
Yeah, it's always good to talk to anyone who wants to have their say in the game. So what is it? Is it NRL? Is it Penrith? Is it Origin? What's on your mind?
No, mate. It's those Maroons, those mighty Maroons.
So you a New South Wales fan?
Living in New South Wales, but I've always been a Queensland supporter.
Okay.
I'm a before Origin, mate. I used to watch on my little portable black and white TV. Queensland getting smashed. And I thought, I'm just going to go for them. And ever since then, it's been 45 years of passion, mate. I think New South Wales' biggest strength is going to be their biggest weakness. I think they've got too many good players, mate. I think
good problem to have.
Queensland's but you know, who do you work the ball to? You know, like I know that there's plenty of good players in that side, but I think Queensland have got the ideal side. I think they're much faster in the backs. They're more mobile in the forwards. If they hold them in the forwards, I can really see Queensland running away with it. Of course, every game, it's the old cliche, it's one up front, and it is. But, I think with lots of, good ball movement, bringing the ball back in on the inside, moving those New South Wales forwards around, I just think that, I just think they're too big and they're too slow.
Greg, I'll ask you this.
That's just my opinion.
I'll ask you this question. I think Origin is also about all these little moments that they emerge, all these little battles. They emerge across the rugby league field, and you have to win a majority of those battles to win the game. So, but it also comes down to one player that can control the entire narrative. So from Queensland, who's the one player, Greg, that you think if Queensland are going to win, they're going to be the one that's going to have the Wally Lewis-like effect on the game?
Sats, I honestly can't split Munster and Cherry Evans.
Yeah.
I really can't. Munster's good, but he hasn't been as good as he has been the last couple of years. I'm just waiting for him to explode. And I really think this narrative about Cherry Evans being too old, I think it's got in the back of his mind. And I think Billy's kept it in the back of his mind as well. And I think come Wednesday night, Billy's just going to tell both of them to let them have it. Let's shut a few people up, because I watched him being interviewed after Game 3 last year, Billy, and he takes a lot of stuff in, and he doesn't let a lot of people know 100% what he's thinking. But when they started going on about New South Wales and all that on these footy shows and that type of thing, Billy's just sitting there, slightly nodding his head, just taking it in and thinking, right, well, we're going to get back to you guys.
Yeah,
in game one.
Yeah, he doesn't give away too much, Billy. I was talking to, I interviewed Craig Bellamy once about Cameron Munster, and I just really want to quickly touch on some matchups before we get to the Saturday game. I think the matchup between Munster and Moses is really interesting, because I think Munster can have those Wally Lewis type effect on Origin. I think that's how dominant he can be when he gets his mind on the game, and we've seen it time and time again with Munster when he can control the narrative. I was talking to Craig Bellamy interviewing him at a luncheon one day, and he said he'd never come across a player like Munster who can consume so much information and take it on, and then when you think he's not listening,
And then disregard it.
and then go out there and execute it as well.
Yeah, so for me, it's fascinating how that whole cohesion will work between Cleary and Moses.
Yep.
To be fair, Moses has probably had more big New South Wales State of Origin moments than Nathan Cleary has at this point, arguably in his career. And we know that Cleary's going to be calling the shots. They're going to be sort of roaming around the field as well. Is it a case of dueling banjos, or does it just give them another point of difference? I think when Cleary has struggled at Origin level, you've had guys that shoot out of the line on the last tackle and really kick pressure him. Guys like Christian Walsh did it quite effectively early in his career. But all of a sudden, you've got a second option. So if they're going to race up on him, you can go the other way and go to Mitchell Moses. So I reckon it just gives them another point of attack, another kick option, and that's going to really play in New South Wales' favour.
New South Wales by 40. Queensland lost their identity last year. Up the Blues. Nothing sadder than a New South Welshman being flogged following the Toads, Jaws says as well. I mentioned really early on about a matchup that I think is Robert Toyer on Latrell.
Wow.
Now, if Robert Toyer tries to take him on physically, we've seen Latrell get into that beast mode in Origin where he just manhandles people.
Yeah.
But I think we've seen, and we saw it with Api Coruscant and a couple of times last week when he's at fullback, if you can use some footwork on him, you can concern him, you can trouble him a little bit as well. So I think Robert Toy and Billy knows better than most in the way to play someone like Latrell. So that's a really interesting matchup.
So that's what are your thoughts? I mean, Robert Toy's played 10 NRL games.
Brent
at
Tate played
Roosters.
14.
Yeah, so the least experience was Ben Eichen with 4, and then 10 for Payne Haas as well, and he's become a mainstay, of course. But that's not a lot of experience against a big-name player who's in form.
Yeah.
Thoughts? Is he throwing him into the cauldron too early?
Well, many have thought that about those players, that they thought they were way too young. And look at the Origin careers they went on and had.
Yeah.
Like Benny Eichen has had some amazing Origin moments.
Yeah.
And he's 16 or 18 Origin games, whatever it may be. He's had some amazing Origin moments, and that's because he was exposed to it at an early age. Albeit he'd admit there was a lot earlier than what anyone would anticipate. But he's had some great moments. Playing as a centre in Origin through that 98 series as well was some great moments. So is it too early? I think young players are a lot more confident today than what they were in the past. I think they want to be exposed at times, whereas in the past I think you've been a little bit more apprehensive. I need a little bit more games under my belt. I need a little bit more experience in first grade, understanding the contact and the decisions that you've got to make. So when it comes, and I don't know his personality, I'm just basically from an external view, I think these young players are a lot more confident.
It's a great story too, like coming back from back-to-back
Yeah.
ACLs. Wayne Bennett was after him. He met him, had to say no to the super coach. That's a lot for a young guy to handle, and he's handled that well. He's had some good games against good players like Herbie Farnworth.
Yep.
So, he'll go in there with some confidence.
Absolutely. Coates versus Lomax. And it's led to believe Toto will be on the left up against Valentine Holmes as well.
Yep, that's what we're hearing.
Which makes sense. You'd think Toto would be on the same side as Crichton because of their club history.
Yeah.
But you've got to try and negate Xavier Coates' high ball, and he can do that, Zach Lomax. I'd actually, when it's fifth tackle and they look like they're going to do a crossfield kick to Xavier, if I was Xavier on sort of like the fourth tackle, I'd start sneaking into where around the centre or the halfback would stand in defence. Instead of going across the corner, just dropping in that no man's land.
That little dink kick.
Yeah, and all of a sudden Zach Lomax looks up and says, "Well, hang on a sec, he's not there. He's over there."
Yeah.
So I know.
Are they among the two best you've ever seen in the air? Lomax and
Israel Folau was pretty good.
Israel Folau, of course.
He was amazing. Yeah, I tell you what, the Queensland coach was pretty good, especially when he used to stick the boot up and when you used to come in and try and get you got the boot in the face. Hey, let's get to our SEN League coverage as well. 2 p.m. it starts live on SEN League. Panthers versus the Knights, 5:30. Carrington Park is the kickoff time. Now Knights, they've got to halt a losing streak. Lost 6 of the last 7. Have been relatively rudderless when it comes to scoring points. Now their number 1 point scorer, Kalen Ponga, is gone. But what it can do is put a lot more responsibility on others and not rely on the Bradman Bests and Kalen Pongas to score those points. So, also, for the Panthers, proud Blaney boy, like we said, horse, Liam Henry, going and playing in front of family and friends is very exciting as well. I know the West Tigers beat them in the wet a few years ago, didn't they? And I remember The Panthers beat Canberra with 2 minutes to go. They had to score 2 tries, and Tyrone Peachy scored to win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about this competition stats? We've got a situation where Parramatta were bottom place last night. They win. So if Newcastle upset the Panthers, the 4-peat champions, the best team of the modern era, are coming last.
I know.
That is just unbelievable.
Yep, it's unheard of. Fletcher Sharp to fullback in the absence of Ponga as well, and a host of changes for the Penny Panthers.
What about just with Adam O'Brien? Like during the week, he said, "I've got the full support of the board," which usually suggests the opposite. There's been a lot of talk about whether or not he's got the halves right. Jackson Hastings, he hasn't been picking him, and whether or not he should.
There's a lot of reasons that I'm led to believe that they are right, the Knights, for not picking Jackson. Now I know there's a lot of people on the outside saying he should be picked. He gets them around the field. He's got not a bad kicking game, and but there are a lot of things that are happening around Jackson that I think they're making the right decision if they're actually correct.
Does he hang on and keep his job? I'm talking about the coach, Adam O'Brien. Are they in a holding pattern just waiting for Dylan Brown to get there? Or do they think, well, apart from those cultural issues, like Jackson Hastings isn't going to be part of the club going forward, he's off contract, so what's the point of paying him now?
The Adam O'Brien situation, like we keep saying, he knows there's stress on him. It just comes part and parcel with the game and the results. He knows it, and he's got to answer the questions the best way he can. I think at worst for Adam O'Brien, they'll see out to the end of the year and see how the back end of the season finishes.
Yeah.
I don't think they need to make any rash decisions right now. Does he deserve Dylan Brown to be part of Dylan Brown's career at the Newcastle Knights? If he played a significant role in getting him there.
I'm tipping the $14 million might have played a significant role as
well.
Yeah,
true. And the chance to play with Kalen Ponga. But if he played a significant role in him getting there, I think he deserves to coach him.
But that happens. I mean, Zach Lomax came into play under Brad Arthur. He's not there. That happens all the time. That's just professional sport.
Now, really quickly, before we get to the break, the Roosters v the Sharks, 7:35 at Industry Group Stadium. Now, understrength Roosters, but they've still got James Tedesco. Yeah, and the Sharkies, they've won 5 of their last 6. And I tell you what, for some reason, this Sharks team to me looks different. A lot of it's got to do with Adam Fanua-Blake.
Yeah.
But I just think there's some players that have just started to mature a little bit more. The wins they've had have been really strong wins. Against Melbourne, against Manly, at Brookie as well, at 4 Pines. Nico Hines is just running rather than trying to finesse his way through games.
Yep.
I love the way the Sharkies are playing at the moment. But this Roosters side, even in their losses, they're playing like a team that should play finals.
We were talking about Mitchell Moses and Nathan Cleary and how that works, and that sometimes you don't need a dominant playmaker.
Yep.
Like sometimes you can interchange depending on the situation. Kind of feels like that with the Sharks halves.
Yep.
Like I know that Nico's on the big money and the expectations on him, but he doesn't have to do it all the time. Like Braden can come in and step in if he needs to. And he's been doing that really well.
Yep. Hey, let's get to a break here on Saturday League Kickoff. Plenty more to come. We're going to talk a little bit more about Reece Walsh. We get to hear your text messages as well. We've got a massive game on Sunday. This one's really flown under the radar. The Warriors up against the Raiders at Go Media Stadium. And also, we're going to try and get to, if we get time, we're also going to check and see if Tommy Dearden's available in Queensland camp as well, about Tier 1 allegiances around International Rugby League. This is Saturday League Kickoff. More after the break. Yeah, welcome back to the show. Tommy Dearden coming up very soon. He's a good young man, Tommy Dearden. Comes from a great family. His dad does the greatest chainsaw impersonation you've ever heard. He's a great kid. He's going to join us very soon. He's just got back to me right now. Mick Hillier from Origin Camp.
When you say chainsaw, do you mean best Andrew McCulloch impersonation?
No.
Is that what you're saying, or an actual chainsaw?
He may or may not replicate. I'm going to ask Tommy whether he can do the chainsaw. He's a shy young lad, so I don't think he'll do it. But he's a great young man. He's going to join us very, very soon. But before we do that, let's get to the Warriors versus the Raiders, 4:05 at Go Media Stadium. This is a big match, second versus third. Again, has been lost in the Origin discussions at the moment. But the Warriors, they want to avenge their round 1 loss, which was very disappointing in Vegas. Everyone was lining up, weren't they, to say the Warriors were going to have a poor season, but they've come out and proved everyone wrong. Simi Sasungi, now they lose Hudson Young. Both teams have got one player missing. James Fisher-Harris suspended as well.
Yep.
But Hudson Young is out. They get Simi Sasungi come in. very good player. They lose Matty Nicholson, the Pom. They bring in Zach Hosking. So for a number of years, their recruitment has been amazing.
Yeah.
Going and getting Englishmen and Kiwis that doesn't get affected by origin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think part of that is the result of they used to go for really high-profile players, and there were so many knockbacks.
Yep.
And Donny Furner's always said you probably have to pay 10 to 15% more just to entice them to come to the nation's capital. So they thought we've got to do this differently. So you mentioned the English connection, and then they just said, well, we're going to breed our own. And they have got probably the best crop of young talent, arguably, in the NRL at the moment.
Yeah, you're right. And shout out to the late Peter Scull, Mulholland, who played a huge role in that over the years. He was a wonderful man. You talk about great young talent, and this guy is still very, very young when you look at his age, but the experience he's had in the game is amazing. He's had some big moments in NRL and also Origin, and he's going to be playing next Wednesday night in the utility role. His name's Tommy Dearden. He's in Queensland camp live right now, and he joins us on Saturday League Kickoff. How are you, Tommy?
Sattler and Adrian, how you going? Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you very much, mate. We know how hectic it can get, the Origin camp. And just away from footy, Tommy, I was just telling the listeners and the viewers on Fox League and SEN and Adrian that your dad does the greatest chainsaw impersonations. So can you give us one before we start the official interview?
Well, I can't do it like him, but I've seen the chainsaw a few times, and I think he's running out a bit of lung room, so I haven't seen it for a while. But no, I can't do it like he can.
Now you've been up on the Sunshine Coast, Tommy, with your preparation. The most obvious question is: there seems to be no hiccups. Everything's running along as smooth as possible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's been up at the sunny coast, so it's been good. We've had a few training sessions now, so it's just about building that week and making sure that we're ready to go come Wednesday night.
Tom, massive congrats on your selection. Can you tell us a bit about how you're going to be used? Has Billy Slater spoken to you about your role and when you're likely to come off the bench?
Yeah, we've developed a bit of a plan, but I think the main thing Billy said to me is just basically be ready to come on at any time and anywhere on the park, and it's sort of the utility role is sort of just based on how the game's going and sort of where I'll be needed at different stages during the game. So I think my preparation throughout the week has just been about getting ready to play anywhere and be ready for anything really.
Hey, Tommy, I listened to some really good stories from former Origin players, and they say when they get into camp, there's certain players that when they come to camp, they can tell what sort of mood they're in just by the way they strut around the camp. Now, you hear endless stories about when when Greg Inglis used to come to camp, and if he was on, they were all excited that just the aura that he was possessing. Who is it in the modern game? Like when you go into camp now, and you've been in several camps for Origin, is there a player that when you look at them, you just think, well, that exudes confidence and we're going to be all right on Wednesday night?
I think we're lucky in this Queensland team where we've got a fair few of them players, but I think a big one that's stood out to me has been Tino. He missed last year's series, and you can sort of feel how excited he is and how ready to go he is to be back in the Maroons jersey. And he's a really passionate sort of bloke, and and you can feel his emotion and how much it means to him throughout camp so far.
Tom, what about the freshest face in Origin camp? Obviously, Rob Toy's just come in. We're learning about his story. He's got a wonderful background that we're just starting to know. Only 10 NRL games. What can you tell us about him? Is he a quiet guy? Has he sort of fitted in fairly smoothly so far?
He's fitted in pretty smoothly. It's got a really good group of blokes here, and Rob's been quiet at first, but he's starting to sort of come out of his shell now, and he's a really great talent, and I think it's exciting to see that he's already got his opportunity after 10 NRL games, and I know that even myself, just watching footy on the weekends, I noticed how good he was going, and I think we're lucky to have him in our squad, and I'm just excited to see how he goes because at training he just looks like a freak of a player.
Now, we know that Billy can take in so much information, does so well researched as a player, Tommy, and now as a coach. But in Origin, it's only a short amount of time you get to prepare. How much do you focus actually on the opposition? Are there key players you focus on, or is 80% of it just focused on what you guys have got to try and achieve and not worry too much about the opposition?
I think you've always got to be prepared for what the opposition's gonna throw, and I know we do do certainly look at that and what New South Wales are going to bring. But I know Billy's he's very big on getting our game of footy on, and I think that's what the majority of the focus around the week is getting our footy on. And you do look at New South Wales, but I'd say it'd be 85-90% of it is just looking at getting our game on, and that's where the focus has been all week so far.
Tom, obviously when you're wearing the 6 or 7 on your back, you've got a leadership role, but for yourself, you're also the co-captain as well. Can you tell us a bit about how that's evolved for you, like leading on and off the field with your actions? Yeah,
it's been lucky enough we got some great leaders at the Cowboys there, and to be co-captain alongside Rubes, it's been something that I think we've gotten better and grown into the role as we've had more experience with it. And it's something that you learn on the go and you learn by experience and different situations. And I think I've really enjoyed it. And I think the thing I feel like it does make you a better player, and just having that bit of extra responsibility, and you have to do everything right and be at your best, whether it's at training or at the game. And I think that's the part that and the challenge that I've enjoyed about going into that leadership role.
Now, another player that didn't play in last year's series and was a notable omission as well, Tommy, was Cam Munster. He has such a heavy influence on the game individually. Have you noticed with him missing last year that he seems to be the sort of guy that gets in camp and would just enjoy that whole environment of being around the Queensland teammates?
Yeah, he loves it. Well, I think everyone knows what Cameron Munster brings to Origin camp and what he brings to the actual game itself. And I think certainly at club level and certainly at Origin level, I think he'd be one of the most influential players to play in the Origin arena. And I think it's great to have him back in camp and back in the team. And I know you touched on that aura, and I think Money brings that aura into camp. And he's a great player to play with, and you know what he's like around camp. I think he can get a little bit annoying sometimes, but it's all fun. Yeah.
Tom, it leads me to my next question. Who's the guy that you don't want to roommate with? Like, how does it work? Do you actually have
rooms now?
Do you have your own rooms?
Yeah, own rooms.
Oh, that's
we're own rooms.
Are you missing out on something there, or do you think the prospect of having to bunker down with a Cam Munster is just too much to bear?
I think that's maybe why they did go to the own rooms. I think there's probably a few players in here that are a bit unbearable to room with.
Hey, Tommy, do you have the buffets in camp now, or they stopped the buffets? Because once upon a time you used to get weighed every morning and every night as well in Origin camp. Does that still happen?
We don't get weighed, but they still got the buffets there, so you got to be a little bit careful. But I think nowadays everyone's sort of pretty worries about how they look and what happens. So sort of the buffets are a bit light at the moment.
Yeah. Hey, Tommy, thank you very much. We love it that you've taken time out. We know you've got a really busy schedule. You've had a session this morning, and we really appreciate you joining us on a Saturday morning. From a Queenslander, good luck on Wednesday night. You're always great with your time. So thank you very much, mate.
No, thank you. Cheers, Sats and Adrian. Cheers.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, no, he's a good man. As I said, he comes from a great family. His uncle Donnie Saunders, he played some first grade back in the 90s as well, was a tremendous player. He coaches the Palm Beach Currumbin team, who are playing in national finals or in and around national finals most year in the school boy comps as well. He's a good kid. He's a great kid.
I think from a New South Wales perspective, and they've had so many good players in that 14 super sub role, and the player you didn't want on that bench when they were selecting the side was Tom Dearden.
Yep.
He's just such a good player.
Well, I think he's going to play pretty much, he'll just mirror that same role because he's pretty much the same sort of build as Benny Hunt.
Yep.
Whether Benny Hunt started or Harry Grant started, Benny Hunt would come on as a lock. He'd come on a hooker. If you needed to play him in the halves, he'd play in the halves.
Cooper Cronk was sort of similar back in the day as well.
So it's a little bit of a model that's emerged over time, hasn't it?
And I've got no doubt over a period of time when Daly Cherry Evans transitions out of that side that he'll be playing for a long, long time in that 6 or 7 jersey.
Yeah, I think so. Hey, let's get to a break here because after the break, we're going to get to as many of your text messages as possible because we asked for you to have a say and we want to acknowledge those before we finish up the show. Before we do get to the break, we didn't touch on who you think is going to win that big game tomorrow afternoon. So in Auckland, in New Zealand, up against the Raiders.
Because it's over there, I'll go with the Warriors.
Oh, yeah, I think I'm going to go the Warriors as well, but the Raiders are one of those sides you just don't want to play ever. No. You don't want to play. They just drag you down and they beat you up. And
I think it'll be revenge. I was over there in Vegas when I just thought they were so disappointing, the Warriors, and ever since then they've just clicked, and I think this is their time.
Yeah, thanks to Wing House, the best seats and the beers, always guaranteed, brings you Saturday League kickoff. Let's get to a break. More of your text before we finish up the last 2 hours. Yeah, welcome back to the show. Well, that's nearly it, but we are going to get to some of your text messages. And good morning, gents. Love the show. There's plenty of love for the show, which we love also. Thank you very much for our Fox League viewers and our SEN listeners. As a diehard West Tigers supporter, it's evident the NRL needs to adopt a draft system to ensure balance in the competition. At present, clubs like my team and the others at the low end of the ladder are becoming feeder clubs to the more successful clubs. The Shepherdinator says.
That's interesting stats because Tigers actually have a really good junior nursery.
They do.
And they're saying that, because for a long time, obviously Penrith have had the best 10,000 odd in their catchment. They're saying our junior nursery is now going to be bigger than theirs and it's better than theirs. They're starting to win as they come up through SG Ball, Harold Matts. All of a sudden they're developing players. Do you really want to develop them for someone else?
That's the thing. That's what the draft does. You don't spend as much time on developing your really good players because they'll put in these limitations also around players that come through your local junior development systems that they will be exempt from the draft. Well, why have a draft at all? I think you need to have an open draft where if you're coming off contract this year and you can't negotiate a deal with your current club, you just go into an open draft, whether you're a senior player or not. So Jerome Luai would have gone into an open draft if he can't sign with the Penrith Panthers.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talk about trade windows. I actually think it's a nonsense. There's no point because before when we had the old June 30 window, there were all these deals that were being announced on July 1st. So, the Dylan Brown thing, if we waited till the middle of the year or the end of the year, it wouldn't have changed the fact that clubs are talking to players in the background, whether they should have been or not. And there's no point bringing in a rule that you can't police.
Spoken like a true journo who wants headline news every day.
24/7.
I think if it went back to the old June 30, we weren't allowed to talk to a player before June 30, the year they're coming off contract. At least it lessens the blow to fans, to the playing group, to sponsors, whatever it may be. It lessens the bloodletting.
But in a way, and look at the Lachlan Galvin situation, the Tigers actually brought that forward.
Yep.
They wanted an answer from Lachlan Galvin, but they didn't want the answer that they got. So that's caused all of this ripple effect. And in the end, it's actually fast-tracked his exit from the club, which is what he and his manager wanted all the way along.
And then on the flip side of that, the club would have been negligent if they didn't go to their best young player and try and tie him up now. So the fans would have been asking questions. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. Why wouldn't the Eels release Brown to the Knights straight away to free up funds to win the race for Galvin? Brown to the Knights, Pierce Paul to the Tigers, Galvin to the Eels straight away, Dan says. There's a lot of
well, the interesting thing is
there.
Galvin's not on a lot of money at the moment.
350 allegedly?
Not even.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on that for next year.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be a massive impost in their salary cap.
Matt the Knight here. How are you, lads? We're good. Massive Knights fan. What's going on there? Why don't they settle on a halves combo? It's so painful. Who's in line next if Adam O'Brien had to go? Is it Arthur? Is it Hannay? Is it Walters? Well, there are some good assistant coaches out there that I think one day will make really good head coaches. Yep. You've just got to do your research.
I wonder if someone like Brad Arthur he's got that NRL experience, but he's also such good mates with Adam O'Brien. He'd hate to actually take that job off him, but there aren't that many NRL jobs going around.
Hey guys, back to the Bears. You will even know this. Sats players don't get to clubs until they see that a good coach is at that club. Mal goes to the Bears, which would be great. You'll see players go, Mal isn't silly. He knows that he's a front rower. He'll be studying who is now off contract. Yeah, I think you're always studying who's off contract and who'd be available. But I think Mal he's a huge attraction.
Yeah.
When he walks into a room, Mal is and has always been my hero growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
I used to go down to Davies Park. My dad would take me down and watch him play for the South Magpies. But when he walks into a room, still today, the air just gets sucked out of the room. He's such a big figure, such a huge aura.
I think if you put someone like Mal in charge of Perth, you're going to be okay attracting players. The much bigger challenge is going to be PNG.
Yep.
Living in a compound, living in a different country, all of the logistical issues that come with that.
Yep.
That's going to be a big call for marquee players in particular.
Exactly. Hey, Sats, after watching Papalii yesterday, Joash, it's made me wonder how would Matty Bowen, Thurston and Preston go in today's game? They'd still kill it.
Oh, of course.
Elite
100%.
players. And with the 6 again rule, probably Probably even more
dominant.
dangerous. Absolutely. Yeah, I think we're starting to see the difference in the size of the player now because of the six against the front rows are going to be a lot more like Dylan Egan's sort of.
Well, look at how
Luke Bailey type.
Look at the Bulldogs pack, which has been quite dominant, but they've slimmed down and they're getting big minutes out of their guys. Big change in the body shape at Parramatta too. Look at Junior Barlow compared to this time last year. So there's a real emphasis on being able to punch out big minutes. Terrell May, I mean, he's averaging more than 70 minutes most games.
And John from New Zealand, great to have him from New Zealand, he's saying the access from the Formula One drivers, they talk 10 minutes before the race starts as opposed to our rugby league players who you can't get hold of.
Yeah.
Well, Tommy did. Guess what? We got hold of him live in Origin camp. It was outstanding. So the rest of the NRL clubs, you've got to be better for this show, especially. Hey, no, thank you for Tommy Dearden for coming on the show. Brandy Alexander as well. If you've missed the show or parts of the show, you can get on the podcast. Download the SEN app. Thank you to our Fox League viewers, our SEN listeners. Thank you, AP.
Thanks for having us.
Great work. Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, Tommy Dearden. Most of all, thank you, the listeners and the viewers as well. Enjoy your weekend of rugby league, but most of all, enjoy Wednesday night because it is going to be absolutely amazing. See who comes out on top. See who takes a 1-0 lead. Have a great rest of your weekend.